Welcome to Selling in the Age of AI.
Yeah, this is good stuff. So,
Must-listen podcast for sales professionals who lean into technology without leaning on it. Dive into the future of sales with your hosts, the dynamic and inspiring Frank Somma, renowned keynote speaker, best-selling author, seminar leader, and business coach. Get ready for game-changing insights and strategies that value technology but place humanity at the top of the sales pyramid.
Benvenuti a tutti. Welcome everyone to Selling in the Age of AI, the podcast where we respect the tech but place human-to-human contact squarely at the top of the sales pyramid. I'm Frank Somma, and today I have Barry Farber slumming it with me. This guy's been featured on CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, CNBC, CNN, and nominated for an Emmy, for God's sake. Now he can add Frank Somma's podcast to that lofty list. Let me tell you how I met Barry to start with. 25 years ago, I was a subscriber to Selling Power Live. It was a great program, and one month when my CD came in the mail, yes, that's how long ago this is, the CD came in the mail, I immediately popped it into my car CD player the very next morning. What I heard knocked me out. Selling Power had hired a new host, and the guy was ridiculous. He was so good. I couldn't get enough. As soon as I got to work, I immediately reached out to Selling Power to find out who the guy was and to let them know that the show was exponentially better because of him. They appreciated my enthusiasm and my praise so much that they wound up copying Barry in. Like the true mensch he is, Barry reached out to connect with me, and 25 years later, we're still connected. Let me tell you a little bit about Barry. He's featured in the book, The Greatest Sales Stories Ever Told, from the world's best salespeople. He's the winner of 3 Telly Awards and nominated for an Emmy as executive producer of the Jackie Mason television show. He negotiated the $7 million Evel Knievel roller coaster with Six Flags Park, literary agent for Andy McDonald, who is the Guinness World Record holder for the longest distance jump on a skateboard, 9-time world champion and 23-time X Games medalist, more than any other skater. He sold Andy's book to Simon & Schuster, publishing and created a collectible series of Andy Folds Flats pens. He launched the radio show Breakthrough with Barry Farber on Blog Talk Radio, and in less than 90 days had over 1 million listeners and rated the #1 show on the network with 16,000 active programs. He's the marketer and co-inventor of the Folds Flat pen, which is an amazing device, selling millions in plastic and metal in the promotional, direct response, and retail marketplace. Best-selling author of 12 books in 25 foreign languages with over 1 million copies sold. He's a consultant to Gary Sheffield, one of the MLB's top 25 home run hitters of all time, 509 career dings. He's a regular guest on QVC Selling. I've seen him on QVC Selling. He's amazing. Selling out unique and innovative products since 1997 and featured on HGTV, Home and Garden Television, the hit show I Want That. He's the host of over 400 radio and television shows in New York City, Washington, and the Comcast television network. He's a monthly columnist for Inc. magazine and previously for Entrepreneur magazine for 10 years and rated #1 in content by reader surveys. Are you blushing yet, Barry? Barry is rated as one of the top speakers in Successful Meetings magazine in their cover story. He's a black belt in weapons and regional and national tournament champion. He's featured in Adweek, Investors Business Daily, Newsday, Selling Power, U.S. News and World Report, Investors Digest, Variety, and the New York Times. He's the manager of Trigger Gum, who's the Guinness World Record holder. You got a lot of Guinness World Record holders, man. World record holder for the longest motorcycle jump, 277.5 feet. He also holds the record for the height in jumping, going vertically 80 feet in the air. Well, I guess that's all we have time for. We'll just shut down the podcast now.
Thanks for having me.
Completely out of time after reading about... Dude, when do you have time to do anything? My God, what a list.
That was a heck of an intro. I appreciate it. You went back a lot of days there. First of all, congratulations on B2B and your books and your seminars. I see you speaking, and you're doing a really great job. You really have put a lot of work into that. I'm very impressed with how you approach the whole place, the marketplace. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. I think one of the things I was excited about having you on is that, from way back when, before people were even talking about it, before AI, you were a very strong believer in person-to-person communication. And I mean, went out of your way. Think about, like, tell us how you wound up in all these positions that you were in, like the radio show, representing Jackie Mason, getting Jackie a television show. Like, how did all this come about?
Okay. So you remember we both came from the office products industry, and one of the things that I realized is how do you differentiate yourself? You have all these different manufacturers and so forth. And at the time, I was selling Monroe. Now, Monroe people was a calculator business. This is years ago, and I realized that you had to differentiate yourself. And we had a really good service department, and I felt like, that's what people want. They want a company that can deliver and provide that service and added value. They don't have to think anymore. So I went out to my customers and I interviewed them on a small tape recorder. Now, the reason I did this is I felt that their voice inflection and their enthusiasm would be the greatest testimonial when somebody said, well, we're not sure, it's too expensive, we've never heard of you, whatever it is, going against competition. So I say, I'm glad you said that. I want you to hear from a few people that said the same thing, and here's what they say now. And I pull out a picture of them around the product, and I'd have the audio, which would be a short kind of testimonial that they can contact the customer. And I just felt that not only made the customer feel comfortable making a decision, knowing that there was other customers that had the same, concerns, but also it gave me enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is, I even didn't know this, but entheos is a Greek word, which means the God within. When you're excited about something and when you believe in your cause and deep inside there's value, that comes across to people in a way that is very hard to imitate, to fake. Your natural excitement gets that customer excited. They see you believe in it. They want to deal with people like that. And I think the most important part is really when I started interviewing these customers, realizing that they were telling me things that I wasn't aware of after the sale that were very critical to them, that I could reiterate or just find out from new prospects of what their concerns are, what they look for. So I think that was the biggest thing years ago that differentiated and how I started and felt like, you have to make sure you're not only passionate about what you do, you know everything about your product and service, but you can find ways to differentiate your uniqueness and added value by letting your customers sell for you.
Yeah, but Barry, I mean, your personal power, I think, really comes from this extraordinary, great personality. And I think what you just touched on is having the confidence to believe in what you're doing. We're going to talk about the Little Billy book in a little bit, but going back to how did you sell tens of thousands of books? Wasn't that, I remember the story a little bit, but tell me about the personal power and confidence behind launching books. I mean, there's millions of authors out there, but you have over 1 million books sold. How'd you do it?
So what you see behind me here is The Adventures of Little Billy in Search of the Magic Tree. What is that? That's the 15th book in a process of refining all the feedback from top achievers, from billionaires, brain surgeons, sports legends, financial experts, and people who have professions where they found out how much they loved what they were doing and were very successful. So I wanted to culminate that. By the way, if you see on the bottom, it says printed on a Ricoh C9500. You have to, Ricoh makes good products. What was the process there in all these books? The first real general inspirational book before Breakthrough Selling came out with Prentice Hall and then other sales books. But Diamond in the Rough was the first book through Penguin Publishing that I came out. It was more of an inspirational look at personal achievement, and I included like 50 high-end experts in all different fields. And what came about was it talked about attitude and service and discipline and determination and empathy and listening and all the key traits that you find the best salespeople have. And I was in a meeting with the publisher, and you want to hear what motivated me. I think sometimes you underestimate the power of ridicule, rejection, setbacks, failure, all things that come in at you that disrupt your day that are only some people call setbacks, or I call setups for something different to get me motivated to take action. And so I'm talking about maybe 10 people in the publisher room there. And I said, I'm going to sell 100,000 in the first year. And I said that and I heard a loud laugh.
Yeah.
Like, just a loud giggle in the back, because I'm sure they had 1,000 authors come in and say how many they're going to sell. So every day at 5 o'clock, that laughter rings in my ear. I made another call, another call, another call. I called multi-level companies like Amway, New Skin, Mary Kay, Shackley, all these companies that have a downline of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, because they were hungry for books on inspiration, because they get so much rejection. So I never gave up. It was a whole process. I went to these meetings. I wanted to understand the process and how they buy and purchase these books. And a long story short, eventually had them select Amway first as book of the month. And Mary Kay told their directors 300,000 people in a downline to go to the bookstores and buy it. But special sales where we sold over 100,000 in the first 8 months. Wow. So that laughter kept me motivated every day to keep going into the evening, because you know what? There's no magic secret. I will say this to you. Sure, it's good that you gain from your setbacks to be able to have more intelligent ideas to move forward. But I think the greatest asset is the ability to work when others aren't. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I'm not the most talented person in the world. I make mistakes. I get setbacks all the time. And if I'm not, I feel like I'm not working hard enough. But I feel like when you're passionate about an idea that has value and that can provide benefits to a lot of people, I don't sit back. I keep going forward. There's nothing going to stop me. And I think failure not an option as a motive to things when you have something strong, drives you forward every day.
Yeah, I love the line from, I don't remember the guy's name, but a Navy SEAL that I read his book 20 years ago, and he came to the conclusion that the only way to wash out of SEAL training is to either quit or die. Like, you can't get out unless you give up. So when he was on particularly tough marches, he would say to himself over and over, not dead, can't quit, not dead, can't quit. Because he boiled it down to the ridiculous. I am in charge of whether or not I'm out of here. And I think that's what, it's interesting because you're saying a setback is a setup for something else, a comeback or whatever. And a lot of people have difficulty with that, right? They want to sit in the failure too long. And I think you should sit in it for a minute. It's okay to feel that pain, but then you've got to figure out, where am I going to go next? And like you said, if you've got that belief inside of you.
That book that you read, I think it's the same person as he's a martial artist and Navy SEAL. And he said the most amazing quote to me, which you probably heard. It's, the key to success is being comfortable, being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And when you can put yourself in uncomfortable situations, you learn from that. And that's the key, is to realize, you know what? I didn't study or prepare 100% enough before I went in, but going into it and learning from the setback I just had, I would never get that from the learning. So you have to combine both. We learn from our actions and we act from our learning. One without the other suffers.
And I mean, you're
and my
supposed
dogs
to
agree with me. If you know,
they do. They do. I hear them barking in agreement. You know what, Barry? You're supposed to be uncomfortable.
1 second, Frankie.
Go ahead.
Hey guys, I'm doing an interview here. Okay, maybe we'll meet them later. Okay.
Barry, you're supposed to be uncomfortable. It's, you can have everything as smooth as glass if you want. You just won't get to the high level of achievement, and you and I know this from years ago. So many people that you see that are these overnight successes, nobody understands the amount of work that went in. But I want to ask you something specifically about what's happening in the world today. You're in touch with a lot of really strong, high-end people that sell a lot, market a lot, like Mr. Wonderful and people that I see you keeping company with. With the advent of AI, why should salespeople feel like they still have a place at the table, that they still have a voice going forward and they're not going to get replaced?
I'm a big believer in embracing AI and learning as much as you can. My kids are brilliant. They teach me everything. They talk about AI, and I'll tell you what's interesting. First of all, I don't believe that anything, I don't care, even 50 years from now, and I might be wrong, but I do believe deep down that there is nothing that can take the place of the organic human contact, face to face, the energy that goes on there, and the trust level that people have between each other. You know, I just think about like meetings with people and like you're belly laughing, and you know, this is a client or a friend or whatever, but especially a client that you work with where there's a breakthrough because you both are just hysterical on this one topic and you connect. And then when you leave that meeting and you're on the phone, there's that essence of what happened there that you just cannot replicate. So I believe that we should never run away from this new technology. There's so many things that it can do to enhance your efforts and what you do. But you know, I think it was Picasso that said computers are useless. All they can do is give you answers. But that might have changed though. I think the human touch, even sometimes messing up. I remember I spilled coffee on a meeting at QVC, a meeting there on the person there, my first meeting. You want to talk about a bad meeting? I mean, it was just. But believe it or not, that was the one meeting that we closed the deal. And I think sitting there with the buyer, I said three things. I asked three questions. I said, well, first I asked her, tell me three things that are important to you when you select the product for QVC that make a big difference in their success when it airs. And she sat back and she said, well, it has to be demonstrable. It has to be something they've never seen. It has to be unique and different. You know, she started talking about, and I started writing these things down so that my presentation was exactly in tune with what she said was critical to her. And I feel like that is something that connection face to face, you can't replicate right now on Zoom. You know, you and I have a relationship. I've met with you many times. So I know who you are. So that connection is there in this talk. But I just believe that the human touch and the organic way we communicate, just you can't replace that.
Yeah, there was a great study out of Cornell, Professor Vanessa Bonds, who sent people out with an ask. And she took a group asking via email and a group asking on the phone. And the phone group outperformed the email group 66% against 33% success. Then she sent that same successful phone group out against live, and live crushed the phone group. So what does that mean live does to the email group? You know, like the hierarchy of communication is get face-to-face when you can. If you can't, get on a Zoom call. If you can't do that, make a phone call, and your last bet is texting. And not to say that there isn't a place, you know, like I worry that being an older guy, people that are listening think I'm going to say, hey, get an inkwell out and a quill pen to write your orders, you know. I love the tech. I embrace the tech like you do. I use AI all the time. I just want to emphasize to salespeople that use AI to bolster your business, to find the people you want to find. But remember that people do business with people they like and people they trust, people they rely upon. You've got to figure out, spend your time learning how to be reliable, trustworthy, you know, and dependable. Right. That's where the rubber meets the road. So I know over your shoulder, I think over your shoulder, there's a carved owl, yeah?
So can you see this is Lawrence?
I can. I want to hear about Lawrence, and I want to hear about the book, because if this is the culmination of all the years of, you know, you talking to so many experts, I can't imagine what's packed in here. So
I was carving the owl in my backyard. I started out with a screwdriver and a hammer, very unconventional. These artists would kill me. And then I got some carving tools and stuff. But as I was carving, and I had pictures in my mind, and I looked at pictures, I kept thinking about it, I got to the point where I literally, you go into a state of no mind. Mushin in martial arts means no mind. It's the greatest way to operate in life, even on a sales call. If you truly believe in what you're doing and you're listening to the customer, it should be a natural back and forth, that you're not presenting some script, that it's all about what you believe in. So I'm sitting there, and and that's why I love sculpting and painting, because it gets me out of my zone and I can kind of meditate, get a meditative state. And I said to myself, you know what? you're either going to take this brand, The Adventures of Little Billy in Search of the Magic Tree, since I've been working on since 1991, and you're going to go all out and you're going to do it right, or you're not. That's it. It's either you're 100% or not. And after that, I said we're going to do an animation. We got that done. We got more voices from, MVP Otis Anderson plays Sherman the Turtle. Okay,
Unbelievable.
Bobby Collins, comedian, is the Bosco the Bear. We have the amazing Kreskin, who's no longer with us. Was a dear friend and client. He's the Magic Tree, the voice of the Magic Tree. And, there's so many things that came up. Afterwards, I realized that it's all about a belief system and never giving up and working 24/7. So that's the owl. This is the book. This is the hardcover, the third edition. We sold out the first two paperbacks. And the reason I wanted to do hardcover is I wanted these kids to have something that would last forever, something that would give them a story about a foundation that would last forever. Now, why did I do this? Here's what I did. I took 14 books, all my research interviews. Remember, I'm dealing with patents and molds and licensing and selling to retail and dealing with different individuals and interviewing all these people. And I'm getting so much content. And then I look at the books and find out there are 5 essential facets of what is it that the top achievers do to live an enriching, successful, happy life.
Okay.
And it starts out with the 5 secrets. Number 1, Lawrence the Owl is all about service. Help all the animals that you see, and you shall find the magic tree. That was his whole message, okay? And I won't give away all the secrets, but it was Lawrence the Owl talks about patience and service to others. Then comes up Bosco the Bear about attitude, and Sheba the Wolf about courage to do the things that we're afraid of. Yeah. And Rupert the Toad about empathy. Because he's bullied by the bully frog, but empathy about listening and understanding other people and connecting, and looking on the inside of others. And then the final determination by Sherman the Turtle to never give up on a dream that could be, and you will find the magic tree. And these messages I wanted to be instilled in kids at a young age, where parents, grandparents felt good about the messaging, so that they would, continue throughout their lives of the message in the beginning of their life about what it is that's important. You take care of animals, you learn about them, but through that entertaining format, I wanted them to get a subtle message about these 5 traits that were really refined and condensed from all the books into the children's story that I think is so important today, to give them a foundation early on.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I can tell you that I went to high school for kids that are emotionally challenged and they can't matriculate in regular high school. And I gave a class there every year. It's over here at Collier School and I also did it at Mattawan High School, a couple of other high schools, but I always felt like if somebody taught me at 16 what I learned at 35, boy, oh boy, it would have saved me a lot of pain and problem. I mean, the pain is good, the problem, but I just feel like I would have had a leg up. And I think that's what you're doing. You're trying to give people an early foundation and some of these things that folks don't learn until much later in life.
These young kids, I went to a kindergarten in East Orange, and some of these kids didn't have it great. Their father is not with them, or is, the mother's not. I mean, it's just a horrible upbringing. But I was blown away by the enthusiasm and excitement. You throw questions to them and their answers are unbelievable, because they're just, that saying, out of the mouth of babes, I was just blown away. So I just feel like that there's definitely something very important, especially today, to give the younger generation some key attributes that we would all agree on. You got to agree. You know what? Service, that's the biggest thing in life. Our rewards in life are direct proportion to our service, whether we sell, whatever we do. What goes around comes around. How do we serve others around us with the value that we have, the skills we have that can enrich their lives? And attitude came up as the number 1 factor for success. In a Harvard business study, they looked at intelligence, they looked at attitude, they looked at experience and knowledge, 4 key things. And 97% of the studies, the feedback came that attitude was the most important of the 4. Wow. Attitude. And then, courage to step out of your comfort zone. What we talked about, being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And then especially the empathy about putting yourself in other people's shoes and where they sit. It's so critical at a young age to realize, how important that is. And then the last one is determination, never giving up and having that drive to keep going, because what's on the 1 yard line, you see so many people just give up. They feel like it's not going to work and they're almost there. And I think it's not just about pushing yourself like a bull in a china shop. It's also about letting that feedback sink in and understand different and unique ways to come back stronger. That's what resiliency comes from. I'm a big, if you want to talk about pain, I think this relates to sales.
Sure.
Because when you say sales, I have to cold call. I have to knock on doors. I have to pick up the phone. I have to get rejected. You speak very well in this area, and your books address it extremely well. But every night before I go to sleep, I hit myself all over my body. I work out with martial arts. I take things to the limit, because by the mile it's a trial, by the yard it's hard, but by the inch it's a cinch. I break it down to small patterns of consistency over time that builds a resiliency. So I don't care if it's the fact that, I have these metal rings you've seen that I use in my martial arts so I can hold weapons and train, and they hit my arm over and over. But literally, I can smack myself and there's no black and blue. Nothing happens, because there's actually muscle tears, micro tears in your muscle fibers that happen when you do this over time, when you constantly just are hitting yourself in certain areas. A light hit. You're not killing yourself every evening, but eventually it builds up to a resiliency that I think is the same thing when you're cold calling, when you're selling, when you're when you're doing tough things that you're getting setbacks or rejection, things that are painful to some people are information to me now. It allows me to understand how to move forward differently or more intelligently when I get setbacks. I think pain is a real inspiration for me. I look for pain first, pleasure later. It's a weird statement, because people are saying, "What are you weird? Pain first? What are you, sadistic? I don't know what's wrong with you, Farber." But I think that when you look at anything, okay, let's say it's health, and I know I shouldn't have that fried chicken or these foods or something, but I'll pick the salad. I'll pick the beans. I'll pick something plant-based, whole food, because of the way I eat now, because of I want to use food as my medicine, not medicine as my food. So I have to be selective. In the beginning, it was very painful. I'd be out with friends and they'd be going, they'd be eating all this stuff, and I had a craving for it. But eventually your cell structure changes, your taste buds change, and you really get an exciting burst of energy when you have a plant-based dinner. Just the way I've lived. And I find that the pain first of sacrificing that, the pleasure later of living a healthier and more efficient life that you don't have to depend on medicine, I found as a great analogy for sales. Because if you're going to do anything in business and sales, you got to pay the price. You got to earn it. You're going to get pain there. You're going to be uncomfortable at times, but that's what raises the level and comes back stronger next time.
Well, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, you can, when you cross the bridge from discipline to desire, is what you're saying to me. In the beginning, it's a discipline, and then it becomes a desire. And then there's kind of a component of it that you feel good about setting yourself apart. That you're saying, I'm being true to where I want to go. I set my sights here, and I'm going to remain true to that. And that builds a little bit of confidence. Not eating the cake, not having the fried chicken when you're out with a bunch of people. Those little choices start to build confidence, and that's what allows you to make bigger choices in the face of more adversity later, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's.
And Frank, I've watched your career. Since we met in New York when I was doing that seminar. I think I had the Bow staff.
When I brought you in to talk to my sales team with the Bow staff, but we met because of Selling Power Live through Gerhardt, way back when you first started hosting, and that's for real. I wrote to Selling Power. I said, "You guys just jumped your show by like 1 billion points. This guy's unbelievable." I was so knocked out by you. You are just full of knowledge, and your enthusiasm, your charisma came right through. And then they told you, and you thanked me for the compliment, and next thing you know, we're connected for 25 years.
25 years. But I appreciate that. I really do. And what I wanted to say was that I'm just impressed that you stuck with something. I saw you the first book, then the audio program, then the seminars, and then we all have struggles. Nobody goes through things and go right to success. When you do, that's why a one-hit wonder fails so much, because they get one big hit but never experience the setbacks and difficulty that builds somebody's character inside.
Right.
And I've seen you do that. I'm very impressed with what you stick to it,
Thank
and
you.
congratulations on this show. It's awesome.
I
I
think
love it.
those are the biggest things, man. The ability to continue, right, in the face of adversity. And I think the service component was really big. Like, remember Ziegler saying, you can have anything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And if you lead with that, I used to tell salespeople that I hired, back in the day when I had a big sales team, used to insist that they join a charity organization. Because first of all, they didn't understand that what it would do for them, right? You can't give anything away. The more you do for other people, the more comes back to you. So I understood the karma aspect of it, but I also wanted them to understand that, the universe didn't give you these skills just to line your pockets. You're supposed to take care of other people. But it always wound up coming back with more of the folks that understood that. So that's a great segue to tell me about what's happening in your world in terms of any charities that you want to give a shout out to, or any that you worked with before. Who's out there that we should know about?
Interfaith Food Pantry. Okay.
Okay.
The Interfaith Food Pantry, actually, I took my kids at a very young age there. And the unique part about it was you get a list of people that you would deliver food to who either were they had disabilities, couldn't get out of the house. And I don't know, my kids maybe were 12, 10 even, but I did it for a reason. Not only did we go and we picked out the food that this person needed, and we weighed it, we put it on in a package, and we went out to their homes and got the addresses and brought it and delivered it. But when my kids walked up and delivered the food to somebody who really was unfortunate, because you walk into one place and there's like vodka bottles on the floor, and and I felt like, and my kids go, "Dad, he's smoking, he's drinking. Is that okay?" And I say, there's people that have problems. They see it firsthand, and we're delivering it. And all three of my kids, I'm blessed. They saw things that I think made them appreciate what they had and where they came from, and that's a big difference. Now, these days, there's a place called Tamerlane Animal Sanctuary in New Jersey. If people look up, it's just an amazing situation where the person who started it, he does patents, trademark law, and his wife came home with like a cat and a dog, and then I think a rooster, and she's like, "I have to save these animals." And he's like, "This is too much." So he went out and he got property of multiple acres and opened up this whole rescue farm. And he said it was the worst financial investment he ever made, but the greatest enrichment of his life that he ever made, because of what comes back to him. And I just believe when kids go there for tours, I did a story on them that was pretty immense, because I went up there and I went through the tour and talked to him and saw what he did. And I don't care what. I have two dogs. You have a dog, right?
Yeah, I have a rescue.
Rescue. They're rescues. And I find that the immense amount of joy you get from these animals is unbelievable. People say, "I don't want to get another dog. Mine just died and I can't go through that again." Well, you know what? I went through that once with my other dog, and I realized how I never had a pain like that. But when you give a dog a home like that, you have to think of how much you've enriched their lives and saved their lives and given them something like that. So I do a lot with the Tamerlane Animal Sanctuary and believe that there's something really, truly unique about what they do over other, all sanctuaries are good, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying that's just one that I
It's called
support.
Tamarine.
Tamerlane, Tamerlaine.
Yeah, I want to make sure that's in the show notes because we want people to support that. Hey, Barry, if you go back like maybe early on in the career, midway or whatever, you've met a lot of super successful people. Tell me a couple things. One, who impressed you a lot? I won't say the most because that leaves other people out, but who impressed you a lot, and what's some great advice that you've gotten from some of these folks?
So many. I did an interview with the inventor of the Post-it notes, and what impressed me about him is he sent me this Post-it note. He said, it said like Post-it notes are like ice cream, and he wrote a little note on it and stuff. I saved it. But his mind about imagination and creativity that we need more of, he talked a lot about that and the ability to understand what an invention is and the process you go through. I think he opened my mind to understanding not just for an invention, but any project to go through a list of creative ideas of making those steps more efficient and better. You know, there's been so many brain surgeons, Mark McLaughlin, Dr. Mark McLaughlin.
Yeah.
He is a world-renowned brain surgeon, and I can't tell you how much he's changed my life about how he looks at the way the brain works and what we could do at an early age with children who have the brain, the plasticity of the brain at an early age. They can learn 5, 6 languages by the age of 5. And just we underestimate the power of that, of reading to them, of what you can do at an early age. He inspired me to understand and go do a deep dive into the human body and the mind and you know, how that just, you know, you talk about AI, selling in the age of AI. Somebody said we're like 10%, we're at 10% of where we really know about science. 10%. Think about that now, how far we've come. And even AI, they say, is going to advance it more. I say we're at like 1.2%. Some people say 3%. We have not even, I'll give you an example. I'll bet your viewers out there, how many vessels, blood vessels, if you had to line up your blood vessels in the adult human body, okay, end to end, how far do you think that would go?
100 yards.
That's what I thought. Yeah, maybe, you know, a mile. All right. Over 2 times around the earth, it would go. Over 60,000 miles. And I'm like, so I started just to get in obviously, you know, there's some medical things I had in the past that I just wanted to dive into the human body and understand how it works, the whole body. And that piece of information, if you look up, if you lined up your blood vessels end to end, how long would they be? You're going to get either 2 or 3 times around the planet Earth, and you're going to get over 60,000 miles in some number there. That fact alone just said to me, if that's true, and then you can go on Netflix and all these programming and look up, you know, the greatness of the human body, and they have all these programs of what we've learned. That'll give you a tip of the iceberg of where we are now. That we need to do more discovering. These people I've interviewed are just, you know, that's the greatest thing in the world, to be able to, what you do right now, right? Having guests. After the show, you get inspired by somebody, they say something, you apply it, you know, this is your schooling. Commencement means the beginning of learning, not the end. A commencement speech is the beginning. So I felt like I was lucky to have, you know, the TV, the radio, the podcast, the book interviews, the column interviews. When you go out and you get research from high-level people, that information educates you in a way that's just beyond, you know, anything that I've ever gone through. It just gets you to appreciate things in a much deeper level.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I think the best things that we can do in life is learning from other people, you know, the human connection. So going right back to selling in the age of AI, nothing replaces that. You know, when I think about what I've learned from you over the years, and then the people I interviewed for the book, and the people whose businesses I'm invited into, whether I'm giving a sales seminar for their team or a customer service thing, or I'm giving a keynote talk for a kickoff meeting, whatever it is, the people I meet, it's amazing. I'm just like stealing everything I can get my hands on. There's so much stuff coming out. I remember Jim Rohn talking about being in a church with out of town, and a person that he knew was going to church, and he had to accompany him. And he said the preacher was so good. He said I was just in the church taking notes fast and furious, you know, and everybody's looking at me like I'm crazy. He goes, but I'm the guy that's got the notes. Like he felt so like he had gotten something that other people may have missed. And if you can approach life with that kind of curiosity and that kind of human connection, it's just going to make your life much happier. I mean, there was just, you know, that longitudinal study at Harvard about that's been going on for 80 years, right? And if there was just an article in the Times, in fact, a week ago, that backed that up with the super agers. And the one thing that is in common. Take the Mediterranean diet and the blue zones and all that stuff, add it together, and the one thing that rings through is human connection. People who are social and with other people live longer than those who aren't.
Absolutely. Yep. That
That's
connection.
what
There's a movie, and I don't recall the name of it, but it's about a kid who travels the country and ends up in, I think, Alaska in his a van or bus or whatever. And at the end, he ate something. He ate the wrong plant that was poisonous. And at the end, it said something about, what's important about life is having somebody to share it with, because he was by himself.
I remember. I remember reading it.
Right. It was just, yeah, the connection to people is, the energy you get. I think it's a balance though, because I find myself a lot of times that I'll go to shut down and I'll go into either meditation or martial arts training, or I'll just go and actually just disconnect for a day. Try to disconnect for a day, phone, everything.
Hard.
And something happens that you come back refreshed, you come back with a better approach. It's not that you should do that every day, obviously, but
Right.
I think it's a balance, but you need to throw yourself out there and meet new and different people. And absolutely, that connection is what keeps our enthusiasm and excitement for living.
We've got to wrap it up. I know that you have another meeting after this, but I do want to ask a little bit more about the book and also the pen, because I've always been intrigued by the Folds Flat pen. And you had one, I saw one of the celebrities, a comedian, with the one with the bling on it, which was amazing. But I also want to talk about where, people want to get this book for their kids, get them started on the right foot. So you have to tell me about that, and then tell me a little bit about how the pens are designed, and how, if I wanted them for my company, for example, what would I do?
Well, start out with the book. The book, you can go right to barryfarber.com, and right at the top is you can click there to order the book at St. Petersburg Press for the hardcover.
Okay.
And I promise this is something that whether you're 1 year old or 99 years old, it's the message in here that can be spread with the children that make a difference. So I encourage them there. But the pen is, it's a metaphor for me in life. It's a flat pen, okay? And the only way to write is to unfold it. And I believe that the only way to really benefit in life is when you get knocked down flat on your face. In martial arts, when you get knocked down, you can have an ability to roll out of it and make it a strike, so it becomes beneficial. But when you fall flat, the only way you really unfold new opportunities is by getting back up. So this is a multi-generation. This is a new high-end product. This is, if you go on to foldsflat.com, FOLDZFLAT is the trademark, FOLDZFLAT.com.
Yeah.
Foldsflat.com. You'll see a video there of Kenan Thompson. Kenan Thompson is demonstrating this in his vehicle. And basically what it is there's 100 special editions that they can order, one of 100. And it's going to be, a diamond simulant on one side. You'll see when Kenan demos it. But basically what it is, it's a pen. You want to sign that high-end real estate deal, okay? It's a money clip on the other side.
Oh,
and what
cool.
you do is you unclip this money clip, and then what happens is, as you open it up, boom, it pulls together and folds into a high-end pen to sign those deals. And I've sold over 6 million Folds Flat plastic pens. This one has been designed in partnership with a gentleman named Roland Crines, who is a brilliant jeweler in New York City who works for the biggest name brands, makes $10 million necklaces for queens and royalty. But the reason why I work with him, he was the one person that took it on and never gave up on figuring out ways through, he races Porsche with his son around the country, and he's very into the design of everything. So he was trying to figure out a way where the pen would close automatically so you wouldn't have to figure it out. Just as you unfold it, it pulls together. Yeah. And especially with the writing tip, it actually comes back in so that it doesn't write on your pants when you put it in your pocket or your purse. The big thing is I needed a demo. See, this sold out on QVC when I had a real low-end version. This is the high-end version. And now with Kenan, his demonstration, he's, by the way, one of the most grounded celebrities I ever met.
Yeah.
Same with Mr. Wonderful, too. What a gentleman that guy is. Of course, he's like an animal on Shark Tank.
Yeah, that's his persona. He's supposed to be.
But these guys really understand that word hubris, which some people just get so cocky or arrogant, it really is their downfall. And with them, they're so appreciative. Keenan was probably, I've never met anybody who was so pure themselves. And you would think at that level, they'd have an arrogance. And he was just so big on serving others and listening. And, so it was an honor to have him. I made him a pen and met him in New York, and he went nuts on it. So that's the beginning of that. And believe me, in the background in that, you wouldn't believe it's a novelty. It won't work. We're not interested. I got thousands of rejections, and I felt like it's just such a cool thing. I just never gave up. And I'm talking years later, a brand new patent on a new design, because you never give up on a dream that could be, and you will find the magic tree.
I love it. Let's put a pin in it right there, man. Barry, thanks so much for coming on. I could talk to you for another 6 hours. It's just...
I hope. Frank, you've really
never
come a
ending.
long way. Seriously, I'm telling you, I really enjoy. I've been watching some of your shows, and you've done a lot of work where you've just grown unbelievably over the years. Not that you weren't when I met you, but I'm telling you, you've done. I really am impressed, and I appreciate you having me on. Really do.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Barry Farber, thank you so much.
Thank you, Frank.
All right, man.
Ready to take your sales team or event to the next level? Visit franksomma.com to discover how Frank can coach your top performers, deliver a tailored workshop for your team, or captivate your audience with a content-packed keynote at your next event. Frank's best-selling book, B2B is Really P2P, is now available on Amazon and Frank's website. Here's a special offer. As a valued listener, mention this podcast when you contact Frank and receive a 10% discount on your first coaching session, keynote, or workshop booking.
That's a wrap. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Selling in the Age of AI. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all of the topics we discussed, and of course, to connect with our amazing guests. I have to shout out big love to my production team, Neeks, Angelo, Nico of Digital Presence. You guys rock. If you want your digital presence to explode, check these guys out at digitalpresence.team. And until next time, remember, people can't point and click you. Be the difference maker for your prospects and clients.